Hello, I'm Jack Hathaway, here in Town Administrator, and I'm here for a Conversation Corner. We're at the end of November, and I'm joined by my good friend and my selectman, Jim Lehan. Welcome,
Jack.
Welcome, Jim.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you. Same to you.
I think we're going to get some cold weather the next couple of days, so
Yeah.
get ready.
You're not going to believe what happened this morning.
What happened?
I woke up and I had the most incredible dream. I mean, it was so real. I honestly did not know how to deal with it. But I had this dream that I was a selectman in this small little suburban community,
Yeah.
and that you were the town administrator,
Oh.
and that we actually did this for 14 years.
That's a nightmare.
Thank God I woke up. But I mean, what? I just couldn't believe that.
That'd be awful.
Dreams are strange, aren't they? They really are strange.
Just keep running our little country and up in Vermont.
Yeah, that's another opportunity too. that dream will come tomorrow. But all kidding aside, all good series has to come to a final chapter.
Yeah,
I guess.
This is our last. This is our last hurrah. I don't know.
Well, don't put it that
it's
way.
not the pilot.
No,
but
no. It's the beginning of a new adventure.
Yeah, it is. So, well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Pleasure working with you too.
And we can talk. We can reminisce in a
We'll
little,
reminisce later,
a little
but,
bit. Well, let's get through the business portion first, and then. So we've got town meeting coming up on Tuesday the 27th. Whether or not this gets out before that or not is a question, because we've thrown a curveball at Katie. But I want to thank Katie Woodhams for directing our managing, producing everything besides talking in the show. So thank you, Katie. And she came in today when she was going to stay at home, so we appreciate her coming in. But I guess the first thing is town meeting on Tuesday. We've only got, 14 articles? 14
articles, yeah. Every time I think it'll be a light lift and it'll be a quick meeting, because I don't think there's anything on there controversial.
Yeah.
We're getting some land from the state to add potentially some new fields. That's nothing but good news.
Right.
$400 an acre is a bargain on any day. Some transfers, but that's business as usual. Again, money that we have that we've set aside for different purposes. No real major zoning articles that should cause any problems. We have run around the new well, and we've got good news on the well, which we can talk about in a couple of minutes. But we'll have some committee reports, which may be more than usual, but there's a lot to share. So we'll talk about some of that today, but we'll also talk about it at town meeting. I never know. I'm always surprised, you know, when I think everything will be a light lift, and then we get into extended debates over streetlights and how much we pay for the $800 for Memorial Day parade, you know, and that's the public's privilege. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. So that's the democratic process. Everyone thinks the Board of Selectmen have all this power. It's the people. People have all the power. We don't spend a dime that they don't approve.
No, and one of my techniques has always been, you know, somebody calls with a complaint about something, and I try to answer the question. And if they keep going and going, I say, well, you'll remember when we talked about that at town meeting, and sometimes if I may know ahead of time that they weren't at town meeting, it's works to my advantage.
Well, it may not be a perfect system, but I hope the town always stays with an open town meeting process, and that we don't go to representative town meeting where one person represents a certain segment of the population. I personally am old school. I think it's great that every registered voter gets a chance to have a say in what goes on here, and I think it should be that way.
Absolutely.
As I say, it's not perfect, and yes, things are agenda-driven, but that's democracy. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. I love the process.
Yeah, and I think the governor. I give the governor the credit. He's done some good things over the last 4 years. That some of the municipal relief packages that the two packages that he's put together have done some things to streamline some of our work. That so it keeps the importance of having the democracy, the process of town meeting, but is also giving us some authority to, do some end of the year transfers with the selectmen and the advisory, the finance committee, if you will.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Most people don't know how government works. I didn't when I got on the Board of Selectmen. I mean, you have sort of a high level concept of it, but it is a cumbersome process.
Yeah, it is.
And you know, everything takes an exorbitant amount of time, a number of checks and balances, all intended for the right reasons, but it makes everything very slow.
Yeah.
And he's made, I think, a strong effort to try and sort of speed things up. Signing the warrant is an example from our board's perspective. It used to require a majority signature. Now we can vote for one member of the board to sign, and when you got to come in every Tuesday
Yeah.
to sign those, and you know, it can be cumbersome to get 2 out of 3 people in there to do that.
Right.
You know, people do have lives and do work and do have other issues. So,
Or even worse, 4 out of 7 for some of the committees. I mean, it's just, you
and
know.
if you don't sign them, you know, you don't get paid. So he's done a lot to try and simplify that, and I think that's a good thing.
So you mentioned the well. So we've
Yep.
had some meetings on the well, and you know, we're at the point now where we've done all the pump tests. We've done an exorbitant amount of modeling. So they take all the hydrological information. The engineers and some of them are specialty engineers. They work together and create a a computer model to try and show where the water would draw from and the impact on the wetland resources, the Charles River, the Stop River. And they've submitted that all to DEP. So we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and to me it sounded very positive. We're not approved yet, but we're heading in the right direction.
Well, I'm even more optimistic than positive. I mean, the motion, the word back was that they are very close to approving our new well source, and that we should know in December.
Yep.
And then we'll go through a little bit more of a I'd call it a permitting process to whatever restrictions they may or may not impose, and that's normal on wells.
Yeah, the operational
considerations,
review, yeah.
how much we can draw out and what other considerations might be involved. But this is really good news. This will give us the redundancy that we need. It's turned out to be a good water source. Nothing bad about this.
Right.
It's all good. So,
as Bob McGee and Al Finney from the Water Department have said, this will allow them to sleep a little better at night because
we'll allow all of us to sleep a little better at night, because if one of those wells go down, we have a problem.
Right.
And while we have interconnects with other towns, so that we can help each other in those types of emergencies, those are, they're not free rides. So this is a good thing. We've been looking for as long as I can remember.
Right.
Certainly the time I've been on the board, we've been searching for new water sources. And by the way, it's not going away. We're going to continue to look for new water sources.
We need at least one more after that.
Yeah.
And this permit, our water withdrawal permit, is not asking to be able to draw more water from the aquifer. It's just taking 2 straws, and now we're having 3 straws, and but we'll still draw. We'll have the same limits about how much water we can draw overall. The next one, though, because of to deal with our future growth, we'll likely ask for an additional water withdrawal.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's hard for folks to understand that we are limited in how much water we can take out. So when we impose these restrictions, it isn't because we don't have the water. It's because we're limited in how much we can withdraw from the water. Plus, we only have 2 tanks.
Right.
So, and it's all a gravity system. So we don't want to drain those tanks down in high usage times to the point where we might have some issues if there were a fire or something of that nature. We don't want to lose any pressure. So, and every community does it. Every community does it. To my knowledge, every community. And probably one out there that doesn't have the need to do that, but I actually think it's required in most instances that they have conservation needs. Yeah. So, all good news on the water source. Certainly been a long time in coming. So, yeah.
And then the public safety building is getting close to completion?
It's we are on the home stretch. It has been a tough project. We'll talk more about it at town meeting, but it has had its difficult considerations. Several things we do have, be very open about this, we do have some cost overruns on this. They're primarily driven, I think, for 2 considerations, one a little bit more significant than the other. But this is only the 2nd regional dispatch center done in the state. And they're not easy. They're complex. And the redundancies that are required, because it's our building, we have to provide those kinds of redundancies, are very detailed and very complicated. And when there isn't a lot of experience in constructing facilities of this nature, because there's only been one in Massachusetts, I think it's Cohasset and Situate.
Shrek.
And I think there's a 3rd now proposed, which is really good. You don't always know all of the issues that you have to face. And that's normal with a building project, but I think in this case, because of the complexity, it's been a little more so. The real issue, honestly, has been in the design of the building. We hired a professional architectural firm that has had a good reputation, has done a number of public safety buildings. They're on the state bid list. I mean, all of the things were covered and appropriate, but there have been a significant number of errors in the bid specs that were sent out to the contractors.
Yeah, and my, my 30-second summary of it is, I don't think he understood the complexities of taking a building, a shell, and putting and fitting the police station and the regional dispatch center in there. He didn't do all the homework that he should have done.
And while I would agree with that, that's his job.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I'm not making an excuse for him.
No, I know you're not. I know you. Oh, believe me, I know you're not. But you and I are both on the building committee, and it's been very difficult because a good portion of these cost overruns are really due to flaws in the design work that we hired a professional to complete. And in due time, we will deal with that. We do have funding. Although we don't know, we're within 2 months, I think, of completing the project. There will be funds to work on the fire station. Don't want people to think that's not going to happen. It may not be everything we wanted, but it will certainly be more than adequate to meet the needs of the town. But it's very disappointing that we've run into the financial issues because of issues associated with drawings that, quite frankly, weren't what they should have been. And as I said, we'll deal with that in due time. Yeah. Right now, we just want to get the building complete. We want to get our police department in, and then we can tackle the process on what we're going to do at the fire station. And we're within a couple of months. We'll have a great grand opening. Yeah. It is looking like a police station now.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. It actually is a beautiful facility. Yeah. It's state-of-the-art. Our guys have been working in horrendous conditions. All the rain we've had, if you go down there, you'll see buckets all over the floor because the roof leaks.
Yeah, you got, and we should take some pictures of, kind of showing what we have and what we will have. Yeah. Just the women's locker room is literally a closet in today's world.
You're being kind.
A closet with a bucket in it, as you said, for the rain.
Glad you clarified that.
So we've got some real locker rooms now. We've got cells that make a lot of sense. We've got detention areas where we can handcuff a prisoner and then deal with them through a glass area and actually make and buckle and unbuckle their shackles.
Through the retention area in the existing station, they bring them right in next to regional dispatch and the armory. Yeah. I mean, kind of a bad scenario. Take your pick, left or right.
We've actually got an armory now rather than just
a closet.
A closet on the wall.
Yep.
That's in the kitchen. That doesn't make any sense. We've got a real training area and emergency operations center. We've got an area for the officers to exercise and maintain their shape. As a town administrator, I don't need to be in the best shape every day, but we want our police officers to be in tip-top shape, and that's why we ask them to continually work out. So it's
and they are, by the way.
They are, and they are.
We're very physically fit force.
We're giving them a good place to do it.
Yeah. And don't forget I'm going to call it a garage in the Sallyport area, but we one of the reasons we go through cruisers, well, two reasons. One, our cruisers are on the road basically 24/7. I mean, we patrol pretty much every street every day in the town of Norfolk, and we're one of the few towns that still does that. And I think that and it's unpredictable where they go. I mean, I live in a dead-end street, and they go down that street every day. Probably because I live there and they want to know what I'm doing. Yeah. But they do it to every road, and that helps prevent crime. I mean, their visibility on the roads in the community is one of the many factors as to why we're rated as the safest community, one of the safest communities in the state of Massachusetts. These guys deserve a lot of credit. But that's a lot of wear and tear on the cars. And so while they may have only 100,000 miles in terms of the engine running, because in the wintertime, we don't have any place to house cars under the current scenario. So those cars are running 24/7 in the back during the night. Because if they get an emergency call and there's an officer in the station, the last thing he needs to do is go out and try and start a car that's been stopped and clean the windshield and get the frost off and so on. So that is now solved. We're going to have a number of these cars housed inside. So all good with this station. And I know people have had concerns about that it's not in the center of town. The fire station needs to be essentially located just because of timing and issues associated with that. But the police station does not, because I don't want to say there's nobody there, because that's not totally true, but emergencies are not responded to from the station. They're responded by the police officers that are on patrol in the community. And so those cars are on there all the time. So it really has no impact on response time.
Yeah, and we spent a good amount of time looking for property in the center of town. And,
Yes, we did.
and
Yeah.
so that
Yeah. And of course, the regional
would have been
dispatch,
preferred, but-
the regional dispatch will know where 4 towns of
Right.
police officers are. So if it's a Norfolk resident by the Franklin line and there's a Franklin policeman 2 minutes away and a Norfolk policeman 4 minutes away, that's an easy choice.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll even be a safer community
Yeah.
when that goes into effect.
So that's so good news there. So and I know the other business you have going on is you have your screening committee.
Or search committee, depending on which way you want to look at it. We have this debate. Yes, just a quick update on that. Jack was gracious enough to tell us about his change to Maine. He didn't have to do that. He could have just waited it out until he had a job and given us the 30 days notice that his contract requires. And that's what just about every other town administrator that I've heard of. It certainly happened to us before with Mr. Markle when he decided to go to Ipswich. We got our 30 days notice. We had no clue he was leaving. Jack is a different person. He cares enough about the community and he lives here. It's as important to him as it is to us. So we got that notice, and that allowed us to start this whole process in an early way. So we're well into it. We'll have all the resumes in by the end of November, which is just another week.
Yep.
The screening or search committee, take your pick, is in place. They have met with both the Board of Selectmen and with the consultant who we've hired to help us through this process. They'll be looking through the resumes. They will be, right now, they're scheduled to do interviews with potential candidates in the second and early part of the third week of December. And if we get lucky and we have a good choice, they'll bring forward to the Board of Selectmen. The current board is not participating in that screening process. We did not want to have a member of our board on that because it would be very difficult for whoever it might be to come to the full board, of which there are only 3 of us. Having gone through that process, it's normal to have a bias in terms of how
you've already made a decision.
Exactly, and we didn't want to create that. So none of us are participating in the screening process. We'll just get the finalists.
Yeah, that's good. I believe that's the way it should be done.
I agree, but I've looked at what other towns do, and they always seem to have a selectman on that screening board, and we just didn't think it was the right way to do it. So we wanted to remain as objective in the finals interviews as we could. So we don't know. We will not see the resumes. We won't know who they're interviewing. Those are all confidential interviews, and candidates won't be public until such time as they come forward as finalists.
Yeah.
So we're well engaged. We hope to have a new town administrator on board by, it's possible, February 1st, most likely March 1st. But and quite honestly, that's due a lot to your willingness to work with us to come up with a firm date that allowed us to start this process. Otherwise, last time this happened, it took 6 to 8 months to get a replacement in here. So
I was the interim for 8.
Yeah,
just about 8 months.
Yeah, and so we appreciate it. So we're well on the way there.
All right. Well, good luck. So one other thing I want to talk about today, and as we were walking over here, just over the past 14, 15 years that we've been doing this. Some of the changes that have gone on in town, and we didn't prep anything. So not that we ever prep anything, but I was just as I'm getting ready to leave, and I'm leaving at the end of next week. Liz and I are moving up to Maine, York, Maine, where her parents are, and I'm hoping to find a job in Portsmouth.
They'll have parking bans in May till mid-July. You realize that?
I do.
Okay.
I'm aware of that. And the snow, it's already got a couple feet of snow, so we're good.
Good for you.
We'll bring our snowshoes. But just all the things that have gone on. I mean, I remember when I first got here, the work had already been, the government work had already been done. I should say that all the decisions had been made, but the actual poles coming down in the center of town. All the wires in the center of town. I mean, I still get people, people who are in the business come to me and say, "What a beautiful center of town."
I was traveling. I was out on a business trip when the poles were still up, and I came back after the poles had come down. And when I drove into town, it was like, "Wow, am I in the same town?" It was amazing the difference, and it is a beautiful center of town, and I had a boss once tell me that change is a constant. The only variable is the velocity. So change is real, and we're never. Norfolk will always continue to change to some degree because you can't stop it. It's normal process. What we've tried to do is to make it is to manage the change in a way that we retain the values that we think are important to the town. And there are those that would disagree with that, and that's democracy. It's okay, but we've tried. We've tried our best, and I think all the boards have followed that line. That we like the way our town looks. We hear from people that they like the way the town looks, but we're a town that is desirable for people to live in, and that by definition means growth. And we have to manage that growth in a way that we retain those values, but that we recognize that you can't stop it. You know, I mean, if people own a lot and they want to build a house, they have a legal right to own a lot and build the house. I mean, you can't stop it. So you try to manage it and control it in a way that you retain the basic issues that are important to the community. So, and there's been a lot of change.
And some of that other change, you know, Dunkin' Donuts wasn't here.
Walgreens wasn't here.
Walgreens and Silla's and the
physical therapy place. Yeah.
Those are all, and I'm not trying to take credit for any of that. This is all the stuff has been a team effort between the selectmen, myself, obviously all the
planning boards, land use boards really get the credit for it.
But we're having our last two planners, Rich McCarthy and Ray Goff before him, but they've been a big help, helping us.
Yeah, if I remember 14 years ago, we were about, maybe totally wrong, but I think we were in the neighborhood of an $18 to $20 million operation.
Yeah.
Now we're over 40.
Yeah.
And so you and your finance department and all the board, I mean, we're all running a $40 million business. And you need professionals to do that. It's not a beauty contest. You need people that have the knowledge and the ability to make sure that it's managed in the appropriate way. One thing that I know you've been instrumental in helping us get to is our reserves and our bond ratings, which nobody cares about probably because it doesn't mean a lot to people. But
well, they don't think they care about it, but they do care about it.
They do, yeah. But it's near and dear to me because I come from that business. But we have one of the best bond ratings of a town our size anywhere in the state of Massachusetts, and we've earned that because our financials are strong. I think 14 years ago we had about 300,000 tops, if that, in stabilization fund, and now we're just a tad under 2 million. So, and that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by good management through your office and through all the departments, that they stay within their budgets, and that we continually look to putting reserves away and have built up those reserves so that it puts us in a position that we can manage an unanticipated problem. And they always happen. They always happen. So that's a legacy you will leave us with that is much appreciated because you were our finance director, and your financial background has played a major role in your contributing as our town administrator. And so you've been instrumental in helping us accomplish that. And as I say, folks don't really always get behind the books on these things, but the town is in very good financial shape. We haven't asked for any money that the law doesn't allow us to have, and what the town appropriates. We haven't had any operational overrides in a significant period of time. So we manage within our budgets. We do not have a large commercial base, so we are very much residential based. And I think we're always going to be pretty much residential based. We don't have a 1A. We have a 1A, but limited property. Yeah. We don't have a Route 1. We don't have any major thoroughfares. We don't have a 109 going through the center of town. So we don't, and some of the small businesses that have tried to make it here haven't survived.
Right.
So we're just, not gonna, we don't have a lot of commercial land that can be utilized for significant revenue. I mean, I think the health center that's down on Pond Street is probably our largest commercial tax base. That would be my guess.
By far, yeah.
But warehouses, a house brings in more revenue than a warehouse.
Yeah.
So, it's just because you have a commercial warehouse doesn't mean you make any money on it.
Yeah, Fortran and Four Kicks, Joffran, I should say, and Four Kicks don't bring in, like you said, don't bring in a lot of, because
no, they really don't. People think they do because they're big buildings, but they don't. They don't bring in a lot of revenue. So we're always going to, I think, be pretty much driven by, I think our master plan says our maximum build out is done between 15 and 18%, and I think that's pushing it. Southwood might be one opportunity, but even that's tough.
That's going to bring some residential with it, so
yeah.
it's not going to change that percentage.
Right. So,
well, thank you, and I appreciate that, and I've been able to work with the department heads to manage our budgets. That's been our role, but it's also been a team effort. The selectmen have been very good at. You folks have always been very focused on the budget as well. And
well, you've been through 8 of us, so.
Yeah, well, and you talked about constant change, but you've been the one constant. So it's
for better or worse.
I'll let other people judge that.
Yeah.
But I appreciate everything you've done.
So.
So I think started going down memory lane, and but I think it's been fun seeing all the changes in town, and as you said, we've always tried to keep the town's the history and the town's culture, keep that in place, even though there's change going on. Yeah. And I think we've done a good job of that.
Well, 4-way stop signs were in place when you and I
that's what
started with this too.
We had the roundabouts.
Now we go the roundabouts, and I've heard many people say, well, boy, we weren't very smart because we put in bricks all around those roundabouts. And I've said, well, you're right. The state wasn't very smart because that was a state project and we weren't able to make those changes. We even offered to pay for the changes to put in cobblestones, but nope. If it's a state project, it's a state project, and they're going to do it their way. And, of course, we have now replaced all the bricks with cobblestones. Sometimes people don't understand those are the rules we have to play by. We don't get to change the rules all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Bob's done a great job. And one of my favorite lines from town meeting is Frank Gross, who I have a ton of respect for. Obviously, people who have been around for a while and watching this show know that Frank was our moderator for...
And 21 years on the school committee.
21 years on the school committee and moderator for maybe 36 years.
And ironically, the school in the HI, I have to say this, but we named one of the rooms after him in the new school. And ironically, they picked the cafeteria, so it's called the Gross Cafeteria.
But Frank we were talking about, this was like May of 2004, we were talking about the roundabouts had been... The grant had been awarded and the planning was going on and there was a lot of work going on, and somebody asked the town meeting when are the roundabouts going in, and Frank just responded, "Roundabout May." in Frank's tone, it was just
he had a way.
He was hilarious.
He had a way. He was hilarious. He was a very good moderator. He was a lot of fun. We miss him.
Yeah, we do. He's
miss him.
Enjoying his time down in the Carolinas.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wanted to. Again, we've thanked each other a little bit here, but I want to thank you for everything you've done for me and for the town, and I want to thank the rest of the board of selectmen, the 8 other members, 7 other members, I guess, that I've worked with. It's always been a great board, easy for me to, we've butted heads, as you've said, we've butted heads.
You and I have butted heads many times, and we can still go out and have a beer.
We can still work it out, and it's that's a good way to do business.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we've also, town meeting has been great. I would also say the advisory committee has always been very good to work with. They challenge what we do, but they at the end of the day they get on they convince us to make some changes, and we get on board with a plan at the end of the day and work together to then present it to the town. And it's always been a good relationship. And my department heads and the employees in town, I can't say enough about all those folks that I've worked with over the past 15 years, as you include my town accountant days. What a great group of people. Chuck Stone was the chief when I got here, and he's still the chief
when you leave.
When I'm leaving, Cole Bushnell is the fire chief. He came on just after I got here, but before I became the town administrator. Ann Proto has done a fantastic job in the recreation department. Bob Bullock,
he's got the thankless job.
As I was just going to say, you always say that he's got one of the toughest jobs in town. He talk about somebody that can't make people happy, but Bob does a great job. And I will tell you, he protects. Sometimes when he's saying no because he's trying to protect the residents of the town, and that's his goal, is to try
from themselves.
Right, trying to make sure that the contractors do the work that they're supposed to do.
Bob McGee.
Bob McGee took over for Butch Vito. Both had a lot of great talents. It was a good. They were a good team, and then Bob has done great work since taking over the DPW. Barry just joined. I have confidence that he's going to do great in the future. Marion Harrington up in my office. She just retired.
But
she kept that office flowing. and now Sue Jacobson has been with us for longer than I. Yeah, she's actually been 5 or 6 years with affordable housing, but she's doing a great job filling in pieces all over the. She does more in a day than I can imagine, and then there's too many people in town hall to mention them all. But Karen Terry, Betsy Fidgel, Amy Brady, Anne Marie Duggan, Carol Green. There's a lot of great people who care a lot about the town, and it's been a pleasure working with all of them, and it's a pleasure seeing the service that they provide to the town. And
well, and the volunteers that serve on these boards, we're grateful. I mean, no one does it for, well, I've been cashing all the checks from the last 14 years, and they've all bounced. No one does it for that. All the people that work on these boards pretty much all care about the community. They all live here. They're all citizens. Every decision that anyone makes impacts them as much as it does anyone else.
Yep.
And it's not all easy. You know, sometimes you're trying to mitigate feuds that you can't solve. You know, you get put in the middle of a rock fight that you can't resolve, but you try. Yeah. That's all you can do is try. And I hope, this town is full of wonderful people.
Yeah,
full of wonderful people. It's been one of the great rewards for me in helping the community, is getting to know so many folks and realizing how fortunate we are to have the community we have. Sometimes we let the 1 or 2% that
the squeaky wheels.
There's nothing wrong with squeaky wheels, but it's okay. That's democracy, if you will. But sometimes we let those issues get in the way of all of the good things that happen, and it's always puts a better smile on your face when you wake up and you remember all the good things. Yeah. And there have been a lot.
Oh, absolutely. And I appreciate you bringing up all the volunteers. I mean, Mike Kaliza, John Weddleton, Chris Weeder, all of them. And again, there's too many for me to name all of them. Those are the ones that I've seen, weekly, if not more, for many, many years. And I appreciate everything they do. It's amazing. Sometimes I scratch my head and go, I can't believe those people have the time or the energy to do that, because sometimes it's thankless. And as you said, every once in a while you get some appreciation from.
Every now and then somebody stops you and shakes your hand and say, "Hey, thanks for what you're doing," and it makes everything else go away for the day. Everything.
So
and you don't look for it. You don't walk the streets trying to find it. But when it does occasionally happen, it puts a smile on your face and say, "Well, maybe I'm helping." And I think everyone that volunteers shares that view. So we need more, please. There's always opportunities to help this community in many, many capacities. And the town doesn't run without volunteers. Does not run without volunteers. And so we need help. So hopefully people will continue to be involved and work towards common ground, common solutions. There's always common ground, almost always, if people are willing to take a step back and try and find it.
All right. So I think we've reminisced and
we've reminisced enough. I'm sure the TVs have
thanked each other enough.
I'm sure the TVs have gone off by now.
So
but
one last time, I'd like to thank you for joining me here today. And
it's a shame that the sequel has to get season 14 is coming to a close.
It is.
Yeah. But I wish you the very best in Maine, to you and your family. We will miss them not only in your official capacity, but we'll miss you as a member of our community. Your wife, who has contributed equally in her own way, coaching the field hockey team and basketball teams, and being involved in that capacity with our schools. She's done a great job as well. So we will miss you. Miss your family.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I enjoyed her coaching years.
We are posting your new address on the town webpage for anyone that's driving through York. That now that your kids are away, you have 2 extra bedrooms. I know they'd be more than happy to put up anity pretty much every weekend. That's what your wife said.
They bring a paintbrush, then they're more than welcome to stay. There's a lot of painting to do.
Well, good luck. That takes me off the equation. Yeah.
Well,
I'll have more on your floor than I will on your wall. But anyway, do we miss anything besides of importance that we should share? I think.
I'll just remind everybody that Tuesday, November 27th at 7 o'clock at the middle school, we have town meeting.
If this should get on beforehand. Yeah.
I encourage you to come to that. And then that's it.
Okay.
So I appreciate it.
Best, my friend.
Thank you. And I thank Katie for coming in today on what was supposed to be her work at home day. I appreciate you being here. And
This is her doing. She wanted one more farewell for you.
She did, and so this mess is hers. But one more time, I want to just thank everybody in the town who's made my career here a joy, and I've enjoyed it tremendously. And I wish you all the best, and happy holiday season, and good fortune in the future. Take care.